This is Buffalo, New York speaking, telling what we think of the Japanese aggression. These interviews are recorded for the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., through the facilities of WBEN, the Buffalo Evening News Station. Your name, please.
William Patterson,
And your address?
130 Summit Avenue, Buffalo.
How long have you lived in Buffalo, Mr. Patterson?
Ever since I was born.
And how old are you?
22.
Are you married?
No, I am not.
Have you been in Buffalo during the past few years?
No.
By that I mean you look of college age. Have you been away to school?
Yes, I have. For the past 4 years, I've been at Brown University
And where is that located?
in Providence, Rhode Island.
You have received your degree from Brown?
Yes.
Where were you when the news came? Were you here in Buffalo?
Yes, I was.
How did you react to this news?
I was very much surprised by it. I didn't really think that the Japanese would be so foolish as to attempt this attack, which seems that it must end in failure and ruin for them.
You were entirely surprised by the turn of events.
Yes, I was.
You did not anticipate the Japs doing anything aggressively.
No, at least not so soon.
At least not to us.
Yes.
What did you think they would do?
Well, I thought possibly that they would continue their aggressive moves in the direction of Thailand and possibly down toward Singapore. But I didn't anticipate, as I said, the attack on Hawaii and the Philippine Islands.
At what time did you hear the news?
Almost as soon as it was broadcast.
On Sunday.
On Sunday.
You heard
yes.
it over the radio then?
Yes, I did.
And what was your emotional reaction at that time? One of fear? One of, well, could you describe how you felt?
Well, after the first surprise, I think that I didn't feel any fear. I recognized that all of us here are in for rather a tough time of it, but I was sure that we would all meet the situation to the best of our abilities.
Were you excited?
Well, not a great deal, no.
You felt fairly calm?
Yes, and really confident.
How did your family take the news? You're living with your mother and father, are you?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have 2 sisters.
How did they take the news, your family, your sisters, mother and father?
My sisters, I haven't seen. They're not living in Buffalo, but my mother and father were there, and I think that their reaction was much the same as mine. Fairly calm, a little apprehensive, perhaps, of the dangers that we will have to face, but determined to see them through, as they had seen them through in the last war.
Were they excited?
No, I don't think so.
Did they draw parallels between this war and the last one?
No, they didn't.
What does this mean to you, this Japanese aggression? How will it affect you personally, as near as you can tell?
Well, I don't know what it will mean to my personal life yet.
What are you going to do?
Well, I've been considering very seriously enlisting in one or another of the armed forces of my country.
Have you any preference as to the branch?
Well, not so far, no.
You haven't given it serious thought in this point of really moving toward definite signing up. You've just considered it more or less as a possible line of action for you.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's it.
What shall we do here in America? Shall we, what do you think we ought to do as a people now? What's your attitude toward us?
I think we should fight the war as hard as we can until we've won.
Fight foul or fair?
Well, I don't know quite what you mean by foul.
Shall we bomb undefended cities?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it... I don't know, really. I don't think it's good military tactic. I don't think it's productive of results.
Do you have any moral scruples against it?
Well, I don't know.
Have you thought of it?
Evidently not.
All right, Mr. Patterson, a few other questions. What do you think of the Japs, the people, the Japanese people?
Well,
Do you hate them?
No, I don't hate them. I was very much interested in a news flash I heard over the radio from the Japanese citizens on the West Coast, expressing their loyalty to the president and their shock at the action that their country, their original country, had taken. I don't believe that the majority of, well, I don't know that I can say that, not the majority, but there must be a good many people in Japan who don't believe and don't support this war.
Do you think they are racially treacherous?
Well, no.
You think they are pretty much the same as average Americans in their general relationships to each other?
Well, no.
And their emotional and moral background?
Their customs and traditions, of course, are much different than ours. I haven't made a study of the Japanese situation.
Do you think they, the people, have a sense of fair play?
I wouldn't know.
Do you hate Japs individually? If you saw a Jap, would you hate him?
I don't think so.
Do you hate the Japanese government?
Yes, I think the Japanese military government must be destroyed. And so I suppose I hate it.
Would you include the emperor?
No, I think the emperor is more or less separate from this government that has made this attack. I don't know that he will be overthrown as they will be.
What do you think of our government, the American government, as it is now constituted, the president, the vice president, and so forth, the personnel?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great government.
What do you think of the American people? Do you think we have the strength to ride through a long war?
Yes, I do.
What if our undefended cities are bombed?
Well, even so. The damage that might be done will be repaired, as if the same thing has happened in England. And I think that our spirit will be as good as the English spirit has proven to be.
And what shall we do with them when we get them at the peace table? Shall we have vengeance, retributive justice? Shall we take revenge?
No, I don't think so. I think that the peace conference must be ruled by considerations of all sorts and not of vengeance, except possibly on the political parties in such of the vanquished countries as are represented. The members of those political parties which have started this war and are continuing it, they probably will have to pay the price.
This concludes the interview. This is Buffalo, New York speaking, telling what we think of the Japanese aggression. These interviews are recorded for the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., through the facilities of WBEN, the Buffalo Evening News Station. Charles Harrell speaking. What is your name, please?
Dorothy Baer.
And you live in Buffalo?
Yes.
Where?
504 Glenwood Avenue.
Are you married?
No. I'm a widow.
Mrs. Baer, where were you when the news came of the Japanese aggression?
We were in our living room waiting for the symphony to come.
You say we. Does that mean you and your children?
No,
or?
my father and I.
You live with your father
Yes,
at the
that's
present
right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
How did you react to it when you first heard the news?
Well, for a moment we were stunned. We just couldn't believe it at the moment. At first, I mean, it didn't seem true, and then the more we heard, well, I don't know just how you'd say it. We were horrified.
You believed it might be just a rumor, did you think, or did you think it was a real
yes,
fact?
at first, because the reason that we thought that, we hadn't quite finished discussing an article which we'd read in a New York newspaper about some planes that had crashed in the Pacific, several weeks before, and reading of the screen, so-called, that they had around the Pearl Harbor, 24-hour screen, they called it.
I see.
And it didn't seem quite possible at the time.
Did you feel at the time that that this would mean war for the United States?
Oh, if it were absolutely true, yes.
How did your father feel about it? What was his reaction?
Well, his like mine, you see, it sort of dovetailed in. We had just been discussing it at the dinner table.
Did you feel relief?
No. Of course, we knew for some time, ever since the freezing of the assets of Japan, that something was going to happen. We didn't think it would be anything like that.
What does this war mean to you personally? How will it affect your life, as far as you can tell now?
Well, that's rather difficult to say. Of course,
Are you prepared to make sacrifices?
yes, we are making them now. We have to. All of us are.
You feel like that you're ready for anything that might affect you?
Oh, definitely, because, you see, we're fundamentally Yankees, and I don't think any Yankee has any fondness for a so-called yellow race.
What shall we do as a nation? Shall we fight this war fair or foul?
Well, they started in sort of foul.
Shall we fight that foul?
Well, if fire means fighting with fire, let's fight with fire.
You believe then that we should and can bomb undefended cities?
No, that doesn't seem right. Not for them to do it to us or for us to do it to them. That's not...
If they do it to us, should we retaliate?
Well, we should do something, but I don't believe in defenseless people being the butt of aggression.
I see.
Of course, I don't like that word defense anyway.
That leads me to the next question. Do you hate the Japs?
No, I don't hate anyone.
Do you hate the Japanese, dislike the Japanese people?
I don't dislike the people. I dislike the way they do things so often.
You hate their manner, their government. Do you hate their government?
Well...
By that I mean, do you make a distinction between the Japanese people and their government?
Well, the contacts that I've had with the Japanese, of course, have been only in friends of mine who've had them as servants, and I don't know much about them other than that. But, of course, their emperor is simply a puppet. They seem to be, all those that I've come in contact with seem to be well educated outside of, even those that were servants were.
Do you hate the Japs individually?
No.
Do you
But I don't like the way they do things.
You think that's a racial characteristic?
Yes.
What do you think will happen when we get them at the peace table? By that I mean, what do you think we should do? Shall we have vengeance?
I think first we should be very cagey.
You think that we should be very vindictive about this? What should we do when that time comes?
We should always try and be at least one step ahead of them, both mentally and every other way.
Shall we give them a chance to rise again? We shall stop them so.
Yes, stop them now.
All right. What do you think will happen to the American people? Do you think that we'll conduct this war well, let me put it this way. Do you think we are prepared for this war?
Well, yes, I think we are, but I think we need more preparedness.
You feel that we're emotionally and morally prepared for it?
Yes, I wish that we had, if there was going to be an offensive, that we'd started it and not been on the defensive. I don't like that word defense.
Before the war, were you an isolationist or an interventionist? That's a label, I realize. But
yes. Oh, I'm for America first, last, and always.
You were then an isolationist before the declaration of war.
You mean by isolationist that I thought we should just be sufficient unto ourselves?
That's right.
No, we should be sufficient unto ourselves if nothing is going to happen to us.
And that concludes the interview. This is Buffalo, New York speaking, telling what we think of the Japanese aggression. These interviews are recorded for the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., through the facilities of WBEN, the Buffalo Evening News Station. Charles Harrell speaking. What is your name, sir?
Frederick A. Hodge.
And where do you live?
I live on Linwood Avenue.
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo, yeah.
What is your occupation, Dr. Hodge?
Well, I have done a number of things. Chemical engineer during the last war, educational work, and so on.
I understand at one time you were an instructor in a university and college.
I was, yes, for a number of years.
Where was that, sir?
University of Virginia and Winthrop College in South Carolina.
And you have retired and now living in Buffalo.
I am.
At that time, when you were an instructor in the college and university, what did you teach?
I taught philosophy and psychology.
And you are also a specialist in chemical engineering. Is that right, sir?
Yes, that's right.
Where were you when the news came?
Sunday, I was at home. I just happened to turn on a news program about 5 minutes late and heard it coming in.
Do you regularly listen to the news?
Not usually at that time of the day.
This was chance.
This was just a chance. Yes.
And what room were you in your home?
I was in my den.
Alone?
Alone.
What was your first reaction?
I was utterly astounded. I couldn't believe it.
You did not expect it?
No, I did not expect it.
What did you think would happen before the news came?
I thought that Japan would continue to temporize, possibly declare war on China and a blockade of the Chinese coast.
But you did not expect them to do anything to us?
No.
Did it mean anything to you and your family? Was there an immediate reaction from your family?
Oh, yes. My wife and daughter were very much surprised, and we were, I think, rather dumbfounded and perhaps a little note of sorrow because of what it meant. We knew it meant that we would be at war.
Did you call for them when you heard the news?
I did, immediately.
And where were they?
My daughter was in her own room. My wife was in the front of the house somewhere.
How old is your daughter, sir?
My daughter is 23.
Did she react to the news?
Yes, she was very much excited over it.
What does this mean to you, Dr. Hodge?
Nothing in particular, excepting that I have one son that might possibly be called, a little beyond the age at present.
What does he do?
He travels for a publishing house.
I see. Dr. Hodge, do you think this will change your life? Do you think that there will be a new set of values for you in your home and in your everyday life?
If I live long enough, which would probably include another decade, I think it's going to change the life of everybody.
What shall we do?
I think we must revise entirely our whole national policy. We must see to it that the nations of the world have the necessities of life, but perhaps have the necessities for war restricted in some way.
Do you hate the Japs?
No, not at all.
Do you hate the Jap government?
Yes, I think I do. I dislike it very much.
You do not hate the Japs as people?
No, not at all.
And what do you think of their government?
I think their government is just about as rotten as a government could be. It is dictatorial. It is not in any sense democratic. It leaves nothing for the individual to do or to say, and it probably is worse, if anything, because of the religious element than the dictatorships of Europe.
What do you think of our government?
Theoretically, I think it's fine. I think naturally that we can improve it and will improve it.
You think the war will bring improvement?
I do. I think it'll be more democratic after the war than it is now.
What do you think of our people?
Do you mean in regard to government?
In regard to the government and in regard to the war.
Well, I think the people are today, and that is one of the great values that has come out of this war. They are absolutely united behind the government. The party lines are going to be washed out, and probably one of the greatest things, the one that has impressed me most, is that every country in this hemisphere practically is standing right with us. I do not think that would have been possible 10 years ago.
Do you have a passion for this country?
I have a very strong love and feeling for it, yes.
And yet you recognize evils here which we can correct.
Oh, yes, I think that there are a number of things. They are the minor things.
What would you say, just to name a few?
Well, I think the only, as has been said, the only cure for the evils of democracy is more democracy.
What do you think can come after the war?
I think we will certainly pass through some years of depression, not as great depression as we have had or did have after the last war, however, because I believe that our Social Security will take up a lot of the slack in the employment lines, provide for the older people, which were not provided for before, and therefore perhaps will temper the storm somewhat.
Do you think that we will gain, as far as unity is concerned, for after the war, by the war, or do you think we'll go back to a divided nation, perhaps?
Well, we'll never gain what you might call political unity. We wouldn't want to. That's the very basis on which our democratic ideas rest. We don't want our people to think the same. No people does come to that sort of unity unless they are forced to it. But we will continue to have our differences of opinion, and some will continue to be more violent in them than others. But after all, that's the makeup of a good democracy.
Dr. Hodge, should we have retributive justice? Should we wreak a vengeance upon Japan when we get them at the peace table?
In a way, when we get them at the peace table, I like that term. I don't believe that we should bomb Japanese cities. That's too much the Hitler way of executing hostages. That is the execution of the innocent for the evil that have been done by others. But I think that we should absolutely draw a line, and we should see to it that the guilty are punished.
How old are you, Dr. Hodge?
65.
And that concludes this interview. For a living. What is your name?
Timothy Sullivan.
And what do you do for a living, Mr. Sullivan?
I'm a machinist.
Whereabouts?
Buffalo Foundry and Machine Company.
How long have you been there?
2 years.
Have you been a machinist all your life?
No, I haven't.
What did you do before that?
Well, I worked at all different odd jobs.
Mr. Sullivan, how did you feel when you heard of the Japanese aggression?
Well, I was surprised, and then again I thought, well, it was impossible. I didn't believe it.
Did you experience any fear or excitement?
No, I didn't, because after all, I had pretty good faith in our Navy.
Are you married?
Yes, sir.
Any children?
One.
Mr. Sullivan, do you hate the Japs?
No, I don't believe I hate anybody, but I don't like any of this stab in the back business.
Do you dislike the Jap people?
No, not necessarily.
What do you think about their government?
Why, I think it's all right as far as It's kept in Japan,
You don't like their government outside of Japan.
not for our country.
What do you think we ought to do to them? Should we fight them foul the way they fight us?
Well, my idea of it is fight fire with fire.
If they bomb our undefended cities, bomb theirs in retaliation.
That's right.
Do you feel that the Japanese people are to blame for this? What do
No.
you think caused the war? Let me ask it that way.
Well, I suppose it's just a few people grasping for power.
And by that group, few people, whom do you mean? Do you
Well,
mean the government of Japan, the people there, or do you mean the dictatorship of the military leaders, or whom do you mean?
well, that would be more like my answer, the dictator people.
What are you going to do now that this thing is upon us?
Well, I suppose I'll just have to fall in line with whatever is offered. If
Do you
they
belong
want
to
me-
a union?
Yes, we have a shop union.
A shop union?
Yes.
You feel like that you'll have to make some sacrifices?
I suppose, the same as we all did in the last war.
You're willing to make them?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sullivan, what do you think about the American people? Do you think we're ready for this?
Well,
Your honest opinion.
we've never been ready for anything, but we've always been able to meet it.
Do you think we'll meet this?
I do.
You think that we will not learn by experience, then, of being ready for future things?
Well, we've always made mistakes in the past and corrected them. And I think that's our plan of procedure right now.
Do you think, Mr. Sullivan, that when we get the Japanese at the peace table, after this is over and we've won, what sort of a peace should we write? Should we demand justice? Should we take vengeance upon the people of Japan?
No, I don't think that's ever been our policy.
What do you
As a
think we ought
matter
to do?
As a matter of fact, in my opinion, we've always been too lenient. We should, we should put down a set of rules to go by for the Japanese people and all people. That is, if we win this war.
Do you think there's any doubt?
Well, it's going to be a hard struggle, but honesty will win.
And you think our side has honesty on it?
That's right.
And you feel, Mr. Sullivan, that it'll be a long war?
Yes, I do.
You're ready for that?
It's a mechanical war, and that will be a long one.
That'll be a long time.
That's right.
Mr. Sullivan, I have just one other question to ask you. How does your family feel about it? Your wife, your home?
Well, I suppose the same as every other family that has children in it. They're all fearful of what may happen to the children if we should lose this war.
And you recognize that as a distinct possibility.
That's right. We're all out to protect our home and our loved ones.
Do you feel that we should declare war on any other nations besides Japan, Germany, or Italy?
Japan is the only nation that has molested us, and that's the nation we should deal with at the present time.
And wait for the others, and if they try something, declare war on them?
Not wait for the others as we have waited for Japan, but to be prepared for them in any event.
In case they should come.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. This concludes the interview.
That the President of our country, Franklin D. Roosevelt, is the greatest president this country has ever had. I have always voted the Republican ticket, but I did vote for Franklin D. Roosevelt. I believe that he is the greatest president the United States has ever had for the simple reason that he has done more for the working man than any other president of our time.